What if we could capture an entire underwater world inside a shaker card? Today I'm creating a magical ocean scene filled with beautiful corals, floating jellyfish, and lots of sparkle using products from the Altenew's brand new June release. Hello everyone, I'm Revati and welcome to my crafty space. Today's video is part of the Altenew's June 2026 release Video Hop. To celebrate this amazing release, Altenew is giving away a total of $300 in prizes. Be sure to check the link in the description box below for all the hop details, and don't forget to visit each stop along the hop and leave a comment on the participating YouTube videos for your chance to win. For today's project, I'll be using two absolutely fun new products from the release. The first one is the Ocean Window die set, which works almost like a nesting die set and includes 4 dies that create beautifully organic window shapes. They are perfect for framing underwater scenes, but I can also see these unique shapes being used for all different kinds of creative card designs. I'll also be using the Zero Waste Beneath the Blue die set. This features an intricate underwater design filled with corals, seaweeds, starfish, and a gorgeous jellyfish as the main focal point. One of my favorite things about this die is that you can use both the positive and the negative pieces, giving you endless possibilities for building your own ocean-inspired scenes. To create my windows using the Ocean Windows dies, I decided to work with some beautiful shades of blues. I chose a deep navy blue for the outer layer, paired it with a medium blue in the center, and finished with a soft light blue to create depth and mimic the different tones you might see in the ocean. I'll be sure to link the exact cardstock colors that I used in the description box below. For now, I'll set the windows aside and move on to die cutting all the beautiful elements that will become the focal points both inside and outside our window. I'm using the Beneath the Blue die set, which is a 3-piece die set along with the large intricate underwater cover plate. It also includes 2 smaller dies that cut out detailed coral reef elements. These extra pieces are perfect for adding dimension and building a layered ocean scene with lots of interest and detail. Whenever I'm working with these zero waste dies, I prefer to die cut them from white cardstock so I have complete freedom to add whatever colors I want later on. Of course, you could also cut the design from colored cardstock right from the start for a much bolder and vibrant look. I went ahead and die cut all the pieces and stored the tiny die cut elements in one of those trays to keep everything organized and easy to find. And don't throw away that large negative panel, it makes a fantastic card background all on its own. But for today's project, I will be setting it aside and saving it for a future card. Just take a look at that beautiful details etched into these little die cut pieces. They add so much texture and interest, providing instant dimension to your card design. Even if you were creating a flat, clean, and simple card, these intricate details help bring the elements to life and make the finished product feel extra special. And this little jellyfish has to be my favorite of all the elements we die cut. Not only is it packed with beautiful texture and detail, but just look at those delicate tentacles flowing beneath it. I absolutely love this design. For today's card, I'll be pairing the jellyfish with a few coral pieces, some underwater foliage, and a starfish to create a fun and cohesive ocean scene. I picked out all the elements I wanted to use on my card front and placed them onto my ultra sticky mat. As for the leftover pieces, I'll be storing them right back in the packaging so they are ready to use on my future projects. Now, when it comes to coloring these die cuts, I wasn't following any particular color scheme. My goal was simply to have fun and play with bold, vibrant colors. I started by adding some beautiful shades of blue to the jellyfish. Initially, I planned to use just one shade, but as I continued coloring, I decided to bring in a deeper, richer blue to create a soft ombre effect and add a little more depth. You will actually see me introduce a touch of pink later on as well. And well, funny enough, the jellyfish I ended up using on the final card is completely different than the one I'm coloring here. That's one of the reasons I love die cutting these designs from white cardstock. It gives me complete creative freedom to experiment with colors, change my mind along the way, and customize each element exactly the way I want. To color all of these die cut pieces, I'm using beautiful shades of the fresh dye inks from Altenew along with the small ink blending brushes. Now you could easily achieve a similar look using alcohol markers for more precise and vibrant coloring. Well, let me know in the comments below what's your favorite coloring medium. Do you prefer ink blending, alcohol markers, watercolors, or something else entirely? To color the corals, I decided to bring in some vibrant pink tones. While working on them, I ended up adding a touch of pink to my jellyfish as well, just to see how it would look. I really loved how the jellyfish turned out with those bold pinks and blues. It looked so much more vibrant and fun. However, once I placed it against the blue background that we would die cut with those window dies, I felt it didn't quite blend the way I wanted. That's when I decided to switch to a white jellyfish for the final design instead. But don't worry, I'm not throwing this one away. I'll be storing it and using it for another project because nothing in my craft room ever goes to waste. For my starfish, I went with a bright yellow. I am honestly not even sure if starfish come in this color. I probably should have done a bit of research before I started ink blending these little sea creatures. But like I mentioned earlier, my main goal here was to simply have fun and play with those bold, vibrant colors, so I didn't worry too much about realism. I then cleaned my ultra sticky mat and carefully picked out all the colored die cut pieces and arranged my foliage in place. For coloring, I'll be using the same yellow that I used for the starfish along with some beautiful greens from the Mediterranean Glow set. These greens are a bit more subtle and less vibrant, which feels perfect for creating a natural looking sea kelp effect. I kept that bright yellow at the tips and gradually added the deeper green shades towards the base of the foliage to create a soft ombre effect. Now, once I was done with that, I moved on to the two smaller coral reef die cuts, which I colored using beautiful gray tones from the warm gray fresh dye ink set. I used the shades Lava Rock and Moon Rock to create a beautiful shadow effect on our coral reef, adding depth and dimension to the design. I absolutely love how bright, bold, and vibrant all of these die cut pieces have turned out. The colors really bring the underwater scene to life, and everything feels so playful and full of movement. What I also love about this kind of die cutting technique is that nothing really goes to waste. You can take the all of the leftover pieces and either build a completely new card design or even puzzle piece them back into the original negative panel to create a stunning detailed ocean inspired background. It's such a fun way to stretch your supplies and get multiple looks from a single die set. Now, while I was working through these elements, I did feel that the pink corals needed just a little extra to really tie them into the rest of the palette. So I went back in and added a hint of tangerine green, which is a bright and vibrant orange, to both the coral pieces. That small addition really helped warm them up, added more depth, and made the colors feel more cohesive within the overall underwater scene. Now that our focal point pieces are ready, it's time to move on to the window. The ocean window die set actually includes four different window frames, creating four layered openings in total. But for today's card design, I'll be using only two of those windows, the second and the third layer, to frame my underwater scene. This will help keep the focal area more focused while still giving that beautiful dimensional ocean view effect. I decided to place the lighter shade of blue at the top of the card while the deep navy blue will sit in the innermost layer. This layering helps create the depth and naturally draws the eye inward, almost mimicking the transition from shallow water to the deeper parts of the ocean. I placed the larger of the two dies onto the lighter blue layer. One of the great things about this die set is that they are very flexible in terms of orientation. You can rotate and arrange them in any way you want that suits your design, and they still work beautifully. You'll also notice that the jellyfish fits perfectly within the die cut opening, which really helps bring the whole underwater scene to life and sets the stage for our focal point. You'll start to see the card coming together as we place the light blue layer over the mid-tone blue panel. The contrast between the shades really help build that underwater depth and gives the design a more dimensional feel. Now, since this card has quite a bit of layering and dimension, I decided to trim the second and third cardstock panel very slightly. This helps everything sit together more cleanly once everything is assembled instead of having every layer perfectly align on top of each other. Now, to cut the second window, I like to temporarily layer both the pieces together. The opening from the first layer then acts as a guide, making it much more easier to position the second die accurately on that beautiful mid-tone blue layer before we cut it. I secured the die in place with washi tape to make sure everything stayed perfectly aligned, and then I ran the entire assembly through my die cutting machine. And once that was done, all the layers are coming together. You can really see the vision take shape. An immersive, dimensional underwater scene with beautiful depth and that soft color gradient that naturally draws your eyes right into the center of the design. I'll be storing both of the negative pieces from the die cut window. In fact, I plan on using one of them inside the card as a simple writing panel, giving us a clean space to add our handwritten message while keeping the overall design cohesive. Before building the shaker, I decided to bring in all the colored die cut elements and place them on the card panel just to get a better sense of the overall composition and placement. I moved things around quite a bit, testing different arrangements to see what felt balanced and visually pleasing. However, once I placed the jellyfish against the blue background, I noticed something. It was starting to get a little bit lost in that color transition and wasn't standing out the way I wanted it to. That was the moment I realized I needed to make a change to ensure the focal point really pops. All the other colors look absolutely stunning against the blue backdrop. At this stage, you could even choose to keep the design just like this without adding any dimension or shaker elements. Simply adhere all the panels together using liquid glue along with the die cut elements for a clean, simple, and single layered look. It would still make a beautiful finished card on its own with all the colors and details shining through in a more minimal style. But since we are creating a shaker card, the assembly will be slightly different. I started by adhering the first two panels, which is the light blue and the mid blue window layers, using liquid glue. Next, I will be attaching my acetate window behind the mid blue panel. This will form the clear window for our shaker elements. Whenever I'm working with acetate or any plastic material, I prefer using double-sided tape instead of liquid glue. Acetate has a very smooth, slippery surface, so there's always a chance that the liquid glue can shift, smear, or even ooze out of the edges. Double-sided tape, on the other hand, gives a much cleaner and more crisp finish. It holds everything securely in place without the risk of any messy glue seepage, which makes the whole assembly process a lot more reliable and neat. I'll make sure to add the double-sided tape on all four sides to fully seal the window panel. This is very important because you don't want any gaps or open edges along the window frame or behind the foam tape. A completely sealed border ensures that none of the shaker elements can escape, keeping everything neatly contained inside the card and allowing the shaker effect to work exactly as intended. Now, you'll see me making a decision between the ink blended blue jellyfish and the white jellyfish. I really love the blue version because of that beautiful pink and blue transition. It looks so vibrant and eye-catching on its own. However, once I placed it against that background, I noticed it was getting a little lost in the overall color blend. That's when the white jellyfish came and became the better choice, as it helped the focal point stand out much more clearly while still keeping the design cohesive. To tone down the stark white, I bought in my yellow ink blending brush, and whatever ink was left on the brush, I brushed it lightly to the jellyfish. Now, that subtle hint of yellow softens the brightness of the white and adds a gentle dimension, helping the jellyfish feel more natural and cohesive within the underwater scene while still keeping it bright enough to stand out. It's now time to add the foam tape to create our shaker well. I'm using Altenew's foam tape because I find it slightly more thicker than the regular foam tape that I own. Now, this gives more depth and allows the shaker elements to move more freely inside the window. You'll also notice me placing small strips of foam tape along the edges of the window. This is an important step as it prevents any shaker elements from slipping into the gaps behind the window frame. This way, even when the card is standing upright, all the shaker bits stay visible within the window and move beautifully inside the designated space. Initially, I had planned to place my jellyfish on top of the acetate right over the light blue panel in front, but as I worked through the design, I started loving the idea of having it floating inside the shaker window instead. So I went ahead and added a thinner layer of foam tape to the jellyfish and adhered it onto the navy blue panel inside the window. This helps create a beautiful sense of depth, making the jellyfish feel like it's truly suspended within the underwater scene. I brought the window panel over to the base just to double check that my jellyfish was fully visible through the opening and positioned exactly where I wanted it. Now, before securing it in place, I added a few drops of liquid glue on top of the foam tape. This gives me a little extra wiggle room to adjust the jellyfish if needed, ensuring it sits perfectly within the window before everything else sets in place. Another small but really helpful tip when creating shaker windows, especially when using foam tape, is to apply a bit of anti-static powder along the edges of the foam tape. This helps prevent your shaker elements from sticking to the adhesive side, allowing them to move freely inside the window and create that smooth floating motion we all love in shaker cuts. Now, I like to pick up a little anti-static powder with a flat paintbrush and gently run it along the exposed edges of the foam tape. It's a simple step, but it makes a big difference in how well your shaker elements move once everything is sealed. The next step is to add our shaker elements. I'm using the clear iridescent stellar sequences which come in 6 different sizes. For shaker windows in particular, I prefer using smaller sizes. Here I'm mainly using size number 3 and 4 with just a few of the size 6 mixed in. I find that the smaller sequences create a more delicate sparkly effect and help the window look fuller without overpowering the design. I place the sequence around the area where the jellyfish sits. You'll also notice that the thin tentacles are slightly lifted. Well, they are not adhered to the card panel, which allows the sequence to move freely behind the jellyfish and create a beautiful sense of that underwater motion and depth. I then remove the backing from the foam tape and carefully place the window panel directly over the dark navy blue layer. I made sure everything was aligned properly before pressing it down firmly. To finish, I sealed all the edges tightly, ensuring that there are no gaps for the shaker elements to escape. This step is really important so that all the sequence stays securely inside the window and can move freely without falling out. Now, if you notice that your back panel is slightly off at the edges, don't worry, you can simply trim off the excess with a pair of scissors. This small adjustment won't be noticeable at all as it will be completely hidden behind the beautiful card front, giving you a clean and polished finish without any stress. Isn't this already looking absolutely stunning? Well, now I'll go ahead and start placing all those little die cut pieces we colored at the very beginning. I layer each element carefully and adhere them in place using liquid adhesive to build up the final scene and add even more depth and detail to the design. When layering multiple elements onto your card panel, there's a really simple trick to help you keep everything in place without disturbing your original composition. I like to use the press and seal, which is typically a kitchen sealing wrap used for leftovers like fruits and vegetables, but it also works beautifully in the craft room. You will see me arranging the foliage and the coral on the right side first, then gently place a small piece of the press and seal over the entire grouping. I then lift everything up together. The slightly tacky surface holds all the die cut pieces in place, making it easy to move them as one unit. From there, you can apply your adhesive. Here, I like to use liquid glue. And once I have tiny drops of liquid glue on all those pieces, I will reposition everything back onto the card where I originally planned it to be. And once you've done, you can simply peel away that plastic sheet. It's such a handy way to maintain your layout while working with multiple elements. This method is gentle on your die cut pieces even if you have like delicate, intricate pieces, and it will not tear or damage them in any way. Now, once everything was secured, I went ahead and assembled the remaining elements to complete the card design, bringing in all the layers and details together for the final finish. And this is where you can really make this design your own. You can choose to layer as many or as few elements as you like, depending on the look you're going for. For my card, I decided to use all the colored pieces I had prepared and layered them on the card front while still keeping the jellyfish and the shaker window as a main focal point. Even with those beautiful ink blended elements added on top, the shaker window still remains the star of the design, with everything working together to build a beautiful cohesive underwater scene. The only thing missing now is a sentiment. For that, I decided to bring in this absolutely adorable set. This is the Craft Your Life Project Kit Coral Reef Wonder. This is the June kit. This kit is packed with so many fun ocean theme elements, including a beautiful stamp set with a variety of underwater images and sentiments. It also has the coral reef inspired 3D embossing folder along with the coordinating stencils, which make it so easy to add texture and dimension to your projects. Just take a look at how intricate this embossing folder is. Now, there are 6 different stencils that not only help you color that beautiful 3D embossing folder image, but also has stencils to build a beautiful underwater scene. And the real star of the kit has to be this die set, which includes beautifully detailed fishes that can be layered together using colorful cardstocks to create stunning dimensional look. I decided to stamp the sentiment that says, "Hope your day is as bright as the coral reefs," which I felt matched this card perfectly. I stamped the sentiment using white pigment ink onto the same navy blue cardstock that we used on the inside of the window, creating a beautiful contrast against the dark background. I then heat embossed it with white embossing powder to give it a smooth, glossy finish and make the sentiment really stand out as a crisp final touch for our card. I then trimmed the sentiment into a thin strip and layered it onto the top right hand corner of the card, just above the window. I absolutely love how beautifully this card front came together. There are so many fun elements, the shaker bits, the fun jellyfish almost like floating inside the window, and those beautiful vibrant corals and the foliage on the outside of the window. Now, to finish everything off, I adhered the entire panel onto a top folding navy blue card base. And well, remember that little leftover negative piece from the window die cut? I used one of those inside the card base to create a clean writing panel, giving us the perfect space to add a handwritten message while keeping the design cohesive and intentional. And with that, we can call this card done. I absolutely love how this card turned out. Here's another example using the same ocean window die set, but instead of the coral elements, I added the little die cut clownfishes from the Coral Reef Wonder set. It shows how versatile these products can be and how easily you can switch up the focal point elements to change the entire look of the design. This version is a great example of a clean and simple card style using the same basic supplies, proving how different results can be achieved with just small changes. I hope you enjoyed watching today's video and felt inspired. All the supplies that I used to create this particular project will be linked in the description box below, along with all the details for the video hop. Don't forget to leave a comment on each of the videos for your chance to be entered into the giveaway. All the supplies that are listed are all affiliate links, which means that if you shop using one of my links, I'll get a small commission at no cost to you guys. Thank you again for joining me. Until next time, stay safe.